So welcome. Today I'm here with the Pacific Heart Podcast with Susan Lieu, who is performing her one-woman show, 140 Pounds, How Beauty Killed My Mother, at CamFest 2019. And you've also performed this before in Seattle and other places as well.
Right.
So maybe you could tell me a little bit about yourself and about the show.
Sure. So I'm Vietnamese American. My parents were refugees. They came over in '83, and I was born in the East Bay. Grew up in Santa Rosa.
Okay.
Yeah, and grew up in a nail salon. So my parents had a nail salon, and that was childcare. You know, that's where I just learned what it means to build a really strong work ethic, and it was also there that my world started falling apart. So my mom, she passed away when I was 11 from plastic surgery malpractice, and it was that point, that defining moment in time, that everything kind of fell apart. You know, the nail salon fell apart, our entire family unit, 13 people in a 4-bedroom house, dwindled down to 3 people. Like, there's a lot of separation.
It really broke up the family.
It totally broke up the family.
Event.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so it's been about 23 years now since she's been gone.
23 years. So she passed away in 1995.
1996.
1996, okay.
That's right. Actually, on Geary Boulevard.
Wow. Right.
And for a long time, I've always wanted to know my mother. And I also didn't understand how someone who was on probation, didn't have malpractice insurance, 24 lawsuits against him, how did they walk away free from this? And so I wanted to track down the man responsible for my mother's death. And in the end, what I did was I really found out who she was. And so I wrote a show about it.
Yeah. So tell me. I think I read that you kind of started to think more deeply on your wedding day. Was it? And you saw an empty seat for your mother that was left for your mother. Is that wrong?
I mean, it's when you get married, you think about the family drama that's going to happen. And here I just had this clear physical emptiness. And it's one thing to get a new mother-in-law and have that maternal figure in my life, but I still want my mom to be there.
Sure. Well, it's such a huge, enormous loss to miss your mother. So I'm so sorry for you and your family that you've all gone through this. And I have several patients who have lost parents. It's just a trauma that follows you.
Yeah, I mean, losing your parent is one thing. Losing when you're 11 is also another thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
maybe you can tell me a little more about the issues that you explored with your show.
Yeah, so I explore body, beauty, and death. My mom died from plastic surgery malpractice, and she wanted to get a tummy tuck. You know, she had 4 kids, and she wanted to trim out. And it's been really interesting because all my entire life I've hated my body. And, you know, there's little things that my family will say, you know, being a Vietnamese woman, you're supposed to fit in an ao ya. You know, you're supposed to be really petite, have all these beautiful ankles, and I didn't. You know, I was just kind of like a kind of chubby, tomboyish kid, and that was not a beautiful Vietnamese woman.
And so you would get a lot of comments about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people would tell me all the time. My nickname, my family was like the refrigerator, and, you know, people would always feel like, you know, no one's going to love you unless you lose weight, okay? Like, I'm scared no one's going to marry you. Like, this is before my mom's death and after my mom's death, which was even more ironic. Like, did we learn that we shouldn't say these things? And so I explore body image stuff because I go through it too, and discovering what that was like for my mom, and experiencing it as me becoming a woman and my body changing has been really intense, right? And I don't think I'm just like saying like, media, you're bad, media, stop. It's also culturally, as a society, how do we reinforce things as aunties and uncles and sisters and friends? Like, what are the little things that we say? How do we judge people? That really starts to internalize, gosh, I hate my body. I wish it could look different.
Yeah, it's such a common experience, especially with Asian American families and for women, and probably every Asian American family drama I've seen reinforces that, has those comments that come at women. I just saw The Farewell last week, and there's all those comments that come at the daughter. So,
Yeah, so the first one's body. And then the second one I'm looking at is beauty as well. Actually, I just talked about beauty. Going back to body, okay, you go get surgery, you think you're going to be fine, it's a doctor. How do you protect your body? And the thing is, you know, as I was mentioning earlier, this man who my mom got surgery from, he had a track record. And I would like to have more accountability in the medical space. And I'm trying to get people to see that when you walk into any form of surgery, whether it's elective or not, you cannot assume it's safe. They do not need to tell you they're on probation. And so it's very important to just look up the background.
Record.
All of it.
Yeah.
Just go look up the background of your doctor. And so I'm hoping to create more awareness around that issue. Because, you know, growing up low income, you know, depending what kind of insurance you have, you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to challenge your doctor. You don't want to get a second opinion. Doctors are at the top of the social strata. They're educated. You know, everyone wants their kids to be doctors. So why ever challenge that person or the system? And I just would like people to be more awake to that, because over 400,000 people die every year from medical accidents.
Yeah, and your mom kind of went in very trustingly to
of course.
This doctor.
This man had a really great reputation. He would advertise to Vietnamese folks in the Vietnamese weekly newspaper, and it talked about how he had volunteered during the Vietnam War.
Was he a white?
He was Caucasian, yeah. You know, and it's like, I'm not trying to bring down the medical system. I'm just trying to say, let's make educated decisions.
Sure. Did you find out pretty quickly what had happened, or was there a secret around what happened to your mom?
I had no idea. I mean, I was 11. I remember I had to go in and give depositions when I was 13. And then one day, a friend comes to school and shows me a newspaper from the San Francisco Examiner about my mom. I had no idea all of this was happening because we didn't talk about it at home. And also, you know, with my dad's level of English, I don't know how much he was aware of what was happening.
Did he even
totally
know
frank.
that your mom had gone in for plastic surgery?
Yeah, he dropped her off. I mean, he knew that, yeah. But in terms of this man's background and, you know, the fact that, you know, she had signed away a lot of things and we couldn't actually capture any money from him.
Wow, but your family did pursue legal.
Yeah, but
they didn't have.
He didn't have malpractice insurance. So,
just incredible.
Right,
yeah.
right. So I would like people to be more
Can't even drive
conscious
a
of
car
that.
without insurance.
Right.
To practice
And
medicine.
lawyers have to tell you when they're on probation, so why don't doctors?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the third thing I explore in the show is just about death and about loss, grief, and healing, and what do you do with all this trauma? And what you'll find out in the show is, like most Asian families, we aren't there to be emotionally supportive. We're there to eat with each other, but we're not there to process. And in my search for finding out who my mom was, I get a lot of resistance from my family, and you'll see that in the show.
Wow. Yeah, I can tell even as you talk about it, there's emotion there. This is a very powerful topic, so it's pretty tremendous that you've turned it into a show and perhaps as a way of healing for others as well as yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I went in with the intent, like, I'm going to heal other people. And what I've done by going really deep into this, and I played 10 characters in the show, and having to force myself to be really empathetic to what was their perspective and why. Especially if they don't want to talk about it today. And how do I really form three-dimensional characters with all these folks involved? How do I love them through it? Even if real Susan, doesn't get that support and love she needs.
So you have to embody all their perspectives.
That's right. And that has been healing for me, too.
Yeah. And actually, just to mention, I mean, I think you probably know that, of course, your show is being performed on Mother's Day.
On Mother's Day weekend, yeah.
So, I mean, boy, that's quite a large undertaking as well to do that. Have you performed it on Mother's Day before?
No, this is the first time. I mean, the world premiere was just in February in Seattle. And so I think when Karen asked me to do it for Mother's Day, I was totally honored and floored. It made so much sense. I mean, my mom died just a few miles away from New People Cinema. So to do it there and then is going to be amazing. And I've seen folks I've seen mother-daughter combinations, parent-child combinations come see the show. And it's really beautiful what happens for them.
Yeah, I've had several women in particular be very concerned about physical appearances from young in their 30s to over 70, and feeling like they're only valued if they look a certain way.
Right.
So, yeah, and this, it's all right. The feeling of imperfection we talked about
Right.
is so prevalent. That and it's kind of an obsession with perfection,
Right. Yeah.
a certain kind of perfection. So, yeah, I mean, I've heard OCD described as an addiction to perfection, and so yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about that from an Asian American woman's perspective, how that influenced perhaps your mom.
Right. Yeah. I talk about this show about watching Paris by Night growing up. So Paris by Night for Vietnamese people was the one time where we felt like, wow, Vietnamese people, it's flashy, it's a variety show, song, dance, and theater, and in the 90s it was big. And we would watch it on our days off, and this distinct memory I have is just remembering my family just saying, ooh, she can't wear the aoyai right, she just doesn't know how to wear it, which is, it's not cutting nicely on her, which means, oh, she's not petite enough, she's not thin enough. And are we surprised by this? Like, kids, it's girls starting when they're 6 years old in first grade are thinking about diets.
It's crazy. Yeah.
They're not already feeling enough when they're 6 years old. And then historically, when we look at women that were essentially bought and sold as objects, and there's dowries related to women, how are you going to get yourself a higher price? Oh, so it's probably if you look extremely healthy, or you look very beautiful, and you're going to pass on better genes. It's Darwinism, right? And so we finally emerged out of this where we've got this great feminist movement, and like women have their own jobs, they're supporting themselves. It's great, but we come from a very traumatic history of being bought and sold. And so for my aunties, my mom, that generation, they're trying to be protective. They're trying to make sure that I'm going to be okay and married off and safe and stable, right, and all these things and cared for.
And that's a purely physical,
right,
manifestation.
Because that originally, long time ago, that was our value.
Do you feel like what do you think influenced your mom to be so concerned about her weight and her appearance and so forth? Do you feel like she had personal trauma that really led to that, or do you know?
I always wish I could talk to her and ask her these questions. I think there's a number of reasons. One, okay, she had 4 kids. Okay, so I haven't had a child yet, but your body changes.
Sure.
That's one. 2 is she was in the nail salon industry, and a very popular customer for Vietnamese, for plastic surgery amongst the Vietnamese are nail salon workers. They are in the beauty industry. They are thinking about beauty all the time, if this looks nice and if this looks perfect and how the paint looks. Like, it is part of the industry. And the third part, which I don't think most people would expect me to say, is that my mom was very bold and very goal-oriented. She was a boat person. She wanted to leave Vietnam. It took her 6 attempts to leave, and she left with my dad and my 2 brothers. We come from a very low-income background, and she found a way to do it. She was fierce, and she was bold. And, and so now that she owns her own nail salon, she wants to look a certain way. She's going to set some goals and get the money to do it. So I think it's not, I wouldn't say like, oh, women who do plastic surgery, how sad they can't see their inner beauty. I think beauty is very complex. And I think the type of feminist I am, is that choice to do it or not is not binary. It's not like you either good if you don't choose to do it, and you're bad if you do. That's not what it's about.
Yeah.
It's all about people's personal choice. And so I think the fact that my mom, yes, she grew up in an era where outer beauty and that trimness to fit the aoyai was very particular. She also was very fierce and goal-oriented, and then she eventually found the money to do it. So,
but at the same time, to swim against the current of societal demands is I don't want to trivialize the refugees. It's like, it's like crossing an ocean, really, to go against that demand. I mean, in the social media era, breast implant surgeries have tripled. So plastic surgery dental surgery and so forth that have increased dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. And so clearly, I mean, something's fueling that. So this is something I think we all have to really change and kind of what we promote on social media. So much insecurity.
Absolutely.
And feeling like, people won't hit the like button, won't appreciate you, and you'll be outcast in some sense.
Yeah, and I definitely explore what is beauty and what is worth it in the show. I think if I could turn back time, I don't know if I could have ever prevented my mom from doing the things that she did. All I know now is I would love to show her resources to make smarter decisions.
Yeah, and I guess I certainly appreciate the choice that it takes to do plastic surgery and all that. But another part of me, since I'm a psychiatrist, I wonder. Well, I have one patient who I've had several patients who wanted plastic surgery, and very often plastic surgeon will kind of comply because everybody we all could use some plastic surgery according to a plastic surgeon. But I always wish that the plastic surgeons would say, hey, are there mental health issues here? Or maybe you should talk to someone about your feelings about yourself before you do this.
Of course. Of course.
So I do wish. I mean, so do you kind of explore kind of the mental health issues as well in your show?
I make a couple jokes about therapists.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always hear those.
Yeah. And, for me and my family, I would to go process my grief through a therapist. And I talk about that in the show.
Oh, great.
And I'm pretty vocal about it. I don't really hide anything in the show. And I talk about therapy in my public profile as well because it's really important. And especially having a family that didn't want to process my mom's death. And we still haven't actually had a real conversation about my mom's death.
Even after they've seen your show.
Yeah, they even came to a talk back in Seattle, 2 siblings, and we were able to talk about it in some ways, but to really talk about what that last day was like for you, or how are you doing now, or what feels empty for you, it's very hard to have those conversations. And I think for Asian Americans, our parents might not have showed us those models to support each other in that way. And so I think in my generation, it's our responsibility to find more tools to be able to process things so that we don't continue to pass on our trauma gene.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you for pointing out that therapy is important. And also, I think the sense of family breaking the silence and talking about things that are difficult. That's certainly that's so common to many Asians. We don't know what our parents went through or why they made the choices they made. From internment to so many other things that happened. So I think this definitely fits in that plea for us to talk more. What are you seeing come out of your work in terms of the effects on audiences and?
Yeah, it's been really beautiful. I would have never imagined this to happen, but after shows, folks, it feels like a funeral meets a wedding. Everyone wants to share with me what the show triggered for them. Maybe some distance they feel in their family, their own body stuff, something that went wrong medically. And what I'm seeing happen with audiences is when I shine a light on my specific trauma, they're also shining it on theirs, and they're starting to look at it. People say, right after the show, people start calling their moms. What are the conversations that they need to happen with people who are still alive?
That's so important. It's I think that's so true. We at best, so many people just limit it to whatever texts or, comments on posts and so forth, and we don't have these face-to-face conversations.
Right.
So I think that's so important that this comes out of your show.
We don't walk around like we're actually mortal. We think we're going to be around forever, right? And I think my show is this big reminder that we don't know when we're going to die. We can't predict anything. As much as we try to control, we don't have control.
Yeah, and so that quality of relationship through transience is so important. That just brings up, you'd mentioned in another interview about Buddhism and how that's influenced the show and you. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I started off the show with lighting some incense at one point, and I grew up with ancestral worship, and it was really important for us to pay homage to where we come from, and also Buddhism as well. And what you hear in the show is my dad says things like "bawadi," which means let it go. And so there's something very Buddhist about letting go of things in the past and the pain. But the point is at what point is it okay to let things go? When you've processed it, or is letting it go a way to stuff it?
Right.
You know, and so that's kind of that tension too of what is true letting go. And for me, my take on that is we need to go through that emotional curve. We need to go through that grief and really sit with it. Be angry about it. Be sad about it. And then eventually, maybe that can convert to something very positive.
And you talked about even trying to find a seed of compassion for the doctor who did this to your family.
That's right.
What's that like?
Well, I mean, this was all spurred, seeing that my mom was not with me anymore. On my wedding day, I started thinking, this all actually started from a seed of anger and revenge, of how can people get away with this kind of stuff? And I think the more I learned about his past, and then I started to search for his children, over time I realized, they went through their own pain of losing their dad too. We all as humans suffer. So what do you do with that? Do you just, prolong it? Do you agitate it? Or at what point can you forgive? And I do reach that point in the show. I do.
It's so hard to do, and it's so powerful. I think it's so important, especially in these times right now. But I talked about compassion to some young activists, and they really said, well, this is asking us to do emotional labor, which I was kind of startled by that. And so I don't know what. It's obviously not an easy thing to do, to forgive or to have compassion to someone who's hurt you deeply, who's taken someone from you, and through their inactions and actions. And so, what do you say to that comment of this is emotional labor to love your quote unquote enemy or the difficult people?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in my life, I got two gears. All right, when I interact with people, in this moment right now, is it life-taking or is it life-giving? There's only two gears. You're either you're bringing me joy like Marie Kondo, or you're not, right? And so the question is I can continue to direct energy and be angry, and it takes energy away from me, and it's not going to produce anything beautiful anymore. It's not light. And so yes, I hear these folks talk about emotional labor. But what I see it as, it's confronting it, it's feeling it, it's going through that grief, it's processing it. And yes, that takes work. But what comes out of it is this ability that's much more life-giving. So yes, you have to do the emotional labor to think about, I've thought about the doctor during meditation retreats, and I practice metta, loving kindness towards him. May he be strong and healthy, may he be free from mental suffering, may he love and accept himself as he is this very moment. I think about his kids. Because at this point, sending any negative energy or feeling mad about it is actually bringing the collective down. I'm not going to justify his action. I'm not going to put him on a pedestal. I'm not going to honor him and put energy that way. But at this point, having this form of acceptance and kindness towards him, actually, it uplifts and continues to give more light to the work that I'm doing. I think if I sit with that darkness energy forever and hold on to it, and then with this grasping, this continual resistance doesn't allow space for what can possibly be.
Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of work to build that reservoir that can hold that difficulty. And I'm sure, as with all trauma, these emotions circulate repeatedly. But thank you for doing the hard work to hold this. So I think all the audience will really appreciate it. But one final question, so you kind of went. You had, I think you've had kind of a circuitous route to performance. You didn't start out wanting to be a performer, right? What can you tell me about that journey a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I never. If you look at my past history, I used to lead the rallies in high school. I was always on the PA with my chocolate company. I was always the one doing, with my sister, getting everyone riled up and excited about XYZ. Okay, so I've always been a performer, and I always wanted to be in the play. I always wanted all these things, but I always felt like it was too late. In high school, I should have done it in middle school. When I was at college at Harvard, my classmates were already Screen Actor Guild folks. They were already SAG status. Oh, it's too late. It was always too late. And then when I was living in San Francisco in 2011, I was thinking, I know it's still too late, but what if the Mayan calendar is true? Like, what if it really, Y2K? Like, what if it really was true though? Like, what if it was the end of the world? What would be my biggest regret? And so in 2011, 2012, I started stand-up comedy in San Francisco because I do feel this joy to have the microphone. I do feel in total full orbit when I'm on stage, and I didn't know exactly what that content was going to be like. And as a stand-up, I did all these things. I did Tiger Mom. I did my pitfalls in relationships. Like I was just saying stuff, but I didn't have the discipline, nor did I have, I think, the continued dedication to keep going. I was scared. It was fun, but I was scared. But I loved me. I knew I lived that element, but I didn't know what my point was. Like, what was I supposed to share? And, after I got married, I was thinking about eventually having kids. And I didn't want to be resentful towards them. I didn't want to be like, you can do whatever you want when you grow up, but really know that I didn't do what I wanted when I grew up. And so I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a time box this, give it 2 or 3 years. I want to explore. I want to explore lots of mediums, try lots of things. And in this era of today of social media, I was also paralyzed because I was thinking, oh my God, now I need like 1 million followers. Oh, if I don't have a lot of views, like I suck. But that's not the point of the creative process. The point of the creative process is to continue to iterate, kill your darlings, implode things, keep finding things that resonate for you and the audience and see what marries really well, right? And so I took a solo performance class. The assignment was, tell me a 5-minute story. First thing I said was, I want to avenge my mother's death. And I started telling the class about this story of this quest that I'd been on, because it was important to me, and they were all like, "Whoa, that's really intense, Susan." And I was like, "Is it great?" And so I spent the last 16 months developing small shows. I call them episodes of 20 to 30 minutes each. And each time my audience base gets bigger and bigger, and people are telling me what it means to them.
You said avenge your mother's death. That's
Yes.
where this started.
Yeah, it was anger.
And now, what would you summarize it now as?
Oh, I'm still avenging my mom's death. But you see, now, what we're avenging is about changing the conversation about body, beauty, and death. It's about being able to know that you're in the driver's seat of choosing the thoughts in your mind that are creating your reality all the time.
That's another Buddhist concept.
I know, that's right.
Make the world, right? So,
that's right. And just being really conscious and intentional about it. And so, I hope I create a space of some possibility of healing, of looking at things, of taking care of some past feelings that are hurtful, by sharing my story with audiences. And so I'm still avenging my mom's death. But now we're just rechanging the conversation about things that bring people a lot of suffering that I hope can bring them more joy.
Absolutely. We do need to change the narrative, because the cultural thoughts that get laid down on us are so powerful and so, in many cases, oppressive and restrictive to change our possibilities. So thank you for changing the conversation and creating a new narrative for everyone that sees your show. So I look forward. Thank you for talking to me, and I look forward to seeing your full show next month.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Any final things you wanted to say?
Sure. I mean, I guess behind the scenes of what it's like to be a performer is, before every show, I look at myself in the mirror and I say 3 things. I love you. I thank you. I forgive you. And I'm saying that to me. I'm saying that my mom's saying that to me. And I say that to the world. And I think it's really important for people to forgive themselves. And I hope by this show and people watching it, they're also able to do that for whatever